Hello, everyone, and welcome to my kitchen. I'm Char Nolan, one of the Rouxbe instructors on the culinary team. So nice having everyone here today. Have loved all of the questions that have been submitted, and feel free if you have a burning question to pop in another question. And remember that even if you are not here live, that you can ask a question and you can catch it on the rewind when we publish this event for you. Today is what Tuesday, June 11th. It's a very muggy day here in Philadelphia. Lots of people are graduating from high school and college and preschool and kindergarten, and the list goes on for graduations. Always a reason for a party. So I figured that we would get right into what the questions have been proposed today. I did want to share one interesting thing with you. Last week, as you know, I'm a member of Les Dames d'Escoffier, and we did a tour of Philadelphia's Italian market, and we promised that we would offer food. And I wanted to transport food that looked nice, and I wanted food that would travel safely while maintaining a temperature, which is very important. And I found these. This is called an edible snackle box, and it is food grade plastic because some of the snackle boxes that are on the market or the ones that you find at a craft store are not food grade. And so I wanted to make as safe a dish as I could. And the one thing that I love about this, and you'll pardon that little clicking noise for a second, is that if you are going to teach a class and you have multiple mise en place to take with you, this makes the perfect mise en place because you can put your ingredients into each little well and put the top back on. It travels very, very well in a soft cooler. And it also lends a really neat and organized presentation to when you are teaching a class. So just type in the word wherever you search for things for um, food grade snackle box, and these will come up. They're relatively inexpensive. They're also great. We're going to talk a little bit about batch cooking in a minute. But if you are somebody who likes to have a mini salad bar in your refrigerator, this is the perfect way to put your cut vegetables in, anything that you want to do so that you can make either a quick salad or make a quick stir fry or anything else like that. So they're called snackle boxes, and I was excited to share them with you. So I think that's what we'll begin with from my end, and we'll get right to the questions because they are really good ones. And I always love a good pot and pan question because I think most of us are always on the quest for the perfect pan. And right now, you know that I am totally in love with my Caraway pan, which is a breeze to clean. It cooks beautifully. It retains heat well. It browns like magic without any oil, and I'm totally in love with it. But for those of you who are looking for a heavy bottom pan, many of my friends like the all clad triple bottom pans. And the benefit to a heavy bottom pan is that they retain heat a little bit better. They will cook your food in a faster time. I'm a big fan of using Le Creuset as well. So I think that it's really a personal thing. What I do recommend is head to a thrift shop and look and see if there isn't an old clad or a piece of Le Creuset or whatever, and try out using that pan before you buy an entire set, or catch a sale and buy one piece and kind of monitor it and see how you like it. See if you have shelf space for it, because that's another thing to also take into consideration. So I think pans are personal. That's just my own opinion. So I hope that that has answered your question, Lisa. Thank you so much for sending it in. And this is from Alice, who was sharing that sometimes when she is using the claw technique for cutting vegetables, that her hands might cramp up a little bit. So one thing, because I work with a lot of older adults in real life, and I always say to them, well, we're going to have bananas today for a snack because that little extra bite of potassium might be just what you need. Um, I would say that there are guards that you can get or guides that will help you hold the vegetables instead so that your own hands don't get cut. So my recommendation would be that if you do have the opportunity to go to the Arthritis Foundation of America, that you will be able to see some appliance aids to help you better chop and cut your vegetables. So I hope that that is helpful to you. And it was a very, very good question. So thank you for sending that in. This is from, let's see, from Havelock, who admits that they have become rather, that they're repeating the same recipes over and over and over, which I think we are all guilty of one way or another. So I wanted to hit the rewind button and tell you that 14 years ago, one of my very first plant-based cooking classes was given by Jeff Novick, the registered dietitian who works with the McDougals, and he's been published everywhere, and he's just a font of knowledge. And we, all those years later, stay in touch, and we talk about everything from plant-based food to TV shows that we like. So here's what I learned from Jeff. And this was such a great foundation to have because it made all of this seem so easy. So a green, a grain, and a legume of some sort. So let's say that you are in a super quick hurry. You're going to go to the frozen food aisle of your favorite grocery store, and you're going to get a bag of mixed, let's say you're going to get a bag of Italian vegetables. So it's going to have zucchini, carrots, onions, and something else. So that you're going to get that. And then you're going to buy a box of success rice. That's the rice that's pre-cooked. It comes dry. It's in a bag. It cooks in like 3 minutes. And so you have a vegetable and you have a rice. So let's say that you want to divide that in half because you want to make two different meals that taste entirely different. So if I were going to make it Italian, I would have some grated onions, or so granulated onions rather. I would of course have granulated garlic. I probably would use fresh garlic because I love fresh garlic. And I might have some basil, some dried basil leaves, or if you have fresh, that's even better. And I have a grinder of Italian seasoning. So my first dish is going to be Italian. I cut that, I mix the vegetables and the rice together, and then I divide it in two, and one of it is going to be Italian. Easy peasy. It's probably going to serve two people or one very hungry person. A salad, maybe a side of beans. You could throw some beans in here if you wanted, maybe some lupini beans or some garbanzo beans or some cannellini beans. So that will work perfectly. So the other half of that same mixture of frozen vegetables, and you've cooked the success rice, you decide that you have a hankering to make some Indian food. So you've got the garlic from your first dish. You've got this is the garlic, that was the granulated onion. And then I have to personally say that my Indian cuisine skills are not very good. So I might have some curry on hand. And of course, I have some turmeric, which I always find very helpful and I add to a lot of foods. But my new shortcut is this Indian spice by a small company in Philadelphia called Moji Masala. Moji means mother, and this woman named Shireen Walsh has taken the ingredients from her mother's Indian spice box and she has created them into delicious Indian spice packets. So I would use this in the other half, and then I would have two delicious dishes. So I think that it's looking at your spice base and it's looking at your favorite grains. And remember that you want to mix your grains up, or maybe instead of using rice, you might want to switch to a seed like quinoa, which, as you know, is so rich in protein because it contains all of the 9 essential amino acids. So the other thing that you might want to do is always have on hand chopped up in your refrigerator is the essentials of the three aromatic vegetables that make up a mirepoix, which are carrots, celery, and onions for most cuisines because it can vary. So if you have that in the fridge, and I have seen them in the grocery store where people buy them pre-cut. If you're absolutely in a hurry, I don't like them because the cuts aren't good cuts, but that's just my quirkiness as a plant-based chef. But there are ways that you can sort of expand upon that. If you make the Italian vegetables, you could forget the rice and serve it over a bed of pasta. So it's all about uh, doing what you like, cooking what you like, and then making easy, simple, creative meals. Now, with Summer Bounty here, I would definitely take advantage of all of the fresh vegetables that are coming into season, whether you have a garden or not. And what's jumping off the top of my head right now is all the zucchini that is in my yard and how much we're going to be eating zoodles for the summer. So either the Indian sauce or the Italian sauce will be a perfect summer dish. So do what you love, and it will make eating and cooking so much more fun. And I hope that little tutorial um, was interesting, and it's one of the mainstays of how I teach cooking because remember that um, oftentimes I'm working with people who have lived off takeout or who have never cooked or other things like that. So having a good basic foundation, I think, is a good way. And I hope, Havelock, that this has been helpful for you. And I will be curious to see exactly what it is that you're going to put into your kitchen to start off small, as they say, keep it simple. And then from that, the best is yet to come. So great question. Very, very good. The next question is from Maura. And Maura has a question about the Yonana machine. And I often think that perhaps my middle name should be Yonana because, excuse me, it's such a wonderful tool. If you are someone who has an aversion to single use appliances, it might not be something for you, but this little machine that I have right here is 15 years old. I have used it in cooking classes. I've used it at parties for children. I've used it to make dessert for myself. I'm going to just show you how easy it is to use. So let me first tell you that the Yonana headquarters are located in Cleveland, Ohio, but the Yonanas are made in China. And during the pandemic, someone had borrowed this prior to the pandemic. So I thought, I've got to get a fake Yonana machine. So I found a fake Yonana machine and had to return it stat because it sounded like a dental drill. It was the worst noise that you would ever want to hear, and the product did not come out right. So this is very easy to assemble and put together. This is the chute. This is the tamper. Your frozen fruit goes in here. I like to cut bananas into thirds and freeze them. They fit better. You can use uh, peeled cooked yams, which make a lovely, lovely ice cream, or mix them with peaches or whatever. You stick it in the chute, and then it comes out of here. It's very easy to clean. You just unwind it this way. There are those little blades. Boom, boom. It takes maybe 30 seconds for about 6 pieces of banana to come through. You're first plunged into the Yonana machine doesn't come out of the machine, so you always might want to think about using extra fruit just to have enough on hand. Everyone's sorry for the noise. Everyone's always surprised at how delicious it tastes. However, if you don't have a Yonana machine, and of course, I'm always going to suggest using a small food processor just because the velocity of the blade doesn't become as hot as it does in the Vitamix, which will melt the fruit a little bit more and you'll lose some of that icy texture that you're looking for. So I like to make it in a small food processor, which works very well. But one of the latest crazes right now is taking a microplane and grating the fruit into a dish. So I'm going to hold this real close. This one has bigger holes than this one does, but they both work. I prefer to use this one if I'm grating berries or bananas. I always wear gloves when I hand grate, not to protect anyone or anything if I'm cooking it for myself, but so that my body temperature does not melt the fruit, because you want to get it as icy as you can. So I say yes to Yonanas, yes to a blender, yes to microplanes, and it all seems to work. But I will say that if you're having a party, whether it be for children or adults, setting up a sundae bar with cut fruit and maybe some delicious grain free vegan chocolate chips. Um, Kids absolutely love that. You could make some aquafaba to put on top as its whipped cream uh, counterpart, but everybody seems to love the Yonana machine. And you don't have to get the deluxe version, which is twice the price. The little simple one that retails for about $37 works very, very well. And you can see by the longevity of the one that I just shared with you that it works just fine. So that was a great question. Yeah, I love my Yonana machine, to be honest with you, and I was glad when I got it back after loaning it to someone. Um, Pardon me. To jump on the coattails of Maura's question, this is for Diane. Hopefully, my little explanation has answered the question. I really do like it. It's easy to transport. If you're teaching classes, it's really a nice way to end a class on a delicious note, because lots of times you will hear people say, I really miss having ice cream, but I don't want to eat a commercial vegan ice cream because it has so many additives, it has so much fat, it has so much sugar, etc., etc. Um, so I say yes to Yonanas for the both of you. Invite me to your ice cream party. I'll be happy as a clam to go. So we're going to talk about batch cooking for a couple of minutes, and someone, Lori W, wants to know what some of my favorite things to batch cook are. So I batch cook things that take a long time to cook. So, for example, here we go. Here's a bowl of potatoes and Japanese sweet potatoes. So these I'll just keep in the fridge. I will quarter them and make them into croutons. I will smash them and put them in the air fryer. I will make a potato salad with them. They're a great snack. They're loaded with vitamin C and potassium. Um, Totally delicious. You know, unfortunately, in our society, potatoes have gotten a bad rap over the years. It's not what you Potatoes are good for you. It depends what you mix it with. So tonight for dinner, for example, I'm going to take one of these Japanese sweet potatoes and I'm going to cut it in half and I'm going to smash it and put it in the air fryer. And then I have some kale that I'm just going to saute with some raw vegetables and then put a drizzle of some balsamic glaze over it. And that's going to be dinner. So uh, I also do a lot of batch cooking with beets, because they also take a long time. So I have them at the ready. The beets I can use in a salad. I can just eat them whole because I love them so much, and they're really, really good for you for many, many reasons. So from a vegetable standpoint of view, something that comes out of the ground, uh, a root vegetable or a potato or whatever, is going to be a good thing. I have a rice cooker, and I will cook in it either rice or quinoa, and then sometimes I put it through an identity crisis and I will cook beans in my rice cooker as long as they've been soaked well. Then yes, that works absolutely well. So beans, grains, potatoes, and last but not least, I also batch cook a bunch of muffins for the week. And these muffins are made with oatmeal, and they take minutes to make, and then I keep them in the freezer. And two of them equals a bowl of oatmeal. I garnish these with some dried cherries and some pumpkin seeds just for a little added flavor and texture. And you have them in the freezer, and they'll last you a week, and they're totally delicious. So As you know, I'm not a baker. The first time I ever made a plant-based dessert was from the Engine 2 cookbook, and there's a wonderful recipe for mighty muffins. So I always call these cousin of mighty muffins because at this stage of the game, after making these for more than 14 years, I just throw everything together. What I used in this as my bulking agent was applesauce. And I think someone has a question a little bit later on. We'll go into that a little bit uh, more deeply. And I think that about does it. Grains, potatoes, something to bake. And I think economy, not to get in how food prices have escalated recently. And I only know this because with so many cooking classes that I had this spring, I had to buy so much food for each class. And every week, the prices would go up. So even though I'm a good bargain shopper, if you can bulk batch cook a little bit, you'll be able to contain your food budget and you'll always have something to eat. So I love batch cooking. Wonderful question. Thank you so much, Lori. I really appreciate that. This is from Rose. Hello, Rose. Rose really misses cinnamon toast with lots of butter and cinnamon. So she asks me what my favorite replacement of butter is. And the answer is none, because the margarines that are on the market today have so many additives and things to them. So if you wanted to have a delicious piece of cinnamon toast, and I thought about this question a lot because I think that a lot of our food behaviors are built on tradition and our food history with our family and other things like that. But if you are someone who is avoiding the use of fats in your diet, I would look to something that is a little bit more nutrient dense even than a vegan butter. So if you like almond butter, or if you like an all natural peanut butter, one that doesn't have any sugar or salt in it, and if you heat it up just a little bit, it gets a nice creamy texture to it that kind of resembles butter a little bit. And then you could sprinkle your cinnamon on it as you like it. And will it taste the same? Not as you remember it. Will it still taste delicious? Absolutely. And it might be a really good new food habit to develop and acquire. I also think that making homemade waffles or pancakes, and I would use this batter to make waffles. I often throw them in my waffle makers, and then add a little bit more cinnamon to it, and maybe a little thing of that nut butter that we spoke about, and some fresh fruit, and you'll have that lovely sweetness of the cinnamon, and maybe the melted nut butter kind of gives that same texture because sometimes we miss textures. I like crunchy food, so that's why when I cook things like these potatoes, I overcook them a little bit so that they're a little bit dry. And for me, is how I like them. So I hope this helps. Keep experimenting with things in your kitchen, Rose. And I think that that will be a very helpful and useful thing for you. And you know what? It's a question that I see almost every day in a student assignment because butter is one of those things that is often associated with our childhood or comfort, or when you weren't feeling well, your mother gave you soup and toast, and it always seemed to make you feel better. So let me know how you make out, and try heating up a little bit of your natural peanut butter. I think you'll like that. So the next question, oh, we're back at Rose. I'm still in Rose's kitchen. So can I give her a couple of tips for baking without eggs so that they would rise as if they had eggs in them? So I think, by the way, you'll notice that these muffins were cooked in a metal tin, and I used the brown parchment paper um, liners because if you use the regular ones from the store, because there's no fat, all of the food will peel off, but you can see that when you use these parchment paper that they peel off really beautifully and make a little nice muffin. So the real trick is depending upon what you use as your egg substitute. Most people seem to enjoy using flax meal and always keep it in the refrigerator once it's opened so that the omega 3s and everything else stay intact. A tablespoon of this to 3 tablespoons of water, stir it, let it set for a while. That would equal 1 egg. I didn't use this today in my muffins because I used applesauce, and that can work very well also as a binding agent. But what I always do is I used baking soda today, and you can tell my grandmother told me how to measure a teaspoon because that's would be a teaspoon. And then I add a tablespoon of white vinegar or fresh lemon juice, and the chemical reaction between the sodium bicarbonate or baking soda and the acid will create this fizz, and then gives a nice lift to what you're baking. So I can say that baking, again, we go back to Fran Costigan because when I have a baking question, Fran is who I call because she can always walk me through something. And I think that experimentation is one of the things that is very helpful. We do have in, I think, all of our programs, or it's everywhere all over the internet, but other binding agents that can replace an egg are, tofu, um, sweet potatoes, bananas, apples, applesauce, flaxseed meal, chia seeds, the list goes on and on. So I think if you can get your hands on, and it's all over the internet, the Mighty Muffin recipe from the Engine 2 Diet by Rip Esselstyn, I think that you will be really happy with how those muffins come out. So that's my tip for today. And I wish you were here, Rose. I would share a muffin with you. Oh, here he is. It's Dan M., my dear colleague, Dan Marek. He wants to know what my favorite thing from my garden is to cook in the summer. Well, because of its abundance and it's so easy to grow and makes me feel like I live on a little house on the prairie and I have a massive garden. I love zucchini, and I love making zucchini noodles from them. And Dan, I've shared this with others before during a live event, but a while ago we were at a restaurant and on the menu was zoodles. And I asked the waiter, could you ask the chef how he cooks these? And the waiter came out and said, the chef said, you can go in the kitchen. And he did the most brilliant thing. After he made the zoodles, he heats up a pan with pasta sauce and throws in the zoodles and then cooks them over a low heat. And then this way, they lose that crunchiness and actually have the same texture as a pasta might have. So I'm going to say zucchini, zoodles, and then the other part of it is that I love making zucchini muffins and zucchini cookies, all whole food, plant-based, no oil, and yeah, zucchinis. The squirrels like tomatoes more than they like zucchinis, so I try to keep the squirrels away with popsicle sticks that are covered in Vaseline, and that seems to work very well, in case you're wondering, because I don't use any pesticides. Vinegar also works very well. So great question, Dan. Thanks for sending that along, and I hope to see you soon. Okay. I'm going to do my best to pronounce your name, Nishanth, who has a question about what are your thoughts on South Indian cooking? And I'm afraid to say that I am going to refer that question to our Asian food expert, and that is Chef Eric. So I think we will send this question to him, and then we will make it our plan to get back to you. That's a very good question, and now I have to go read up more about South Indian cuisine. Thank you so much for sending it along. Next question is from Nancy C., who has a question about arrowroot. I don't cook with arrowroot. So again, that is going to be another good question for us to send to Fran. And that is a very good question, Nancy C. But I don't use it. I don't cook with it. And I'm trying to think. I made some vegan cheeses last week for an event, and I thought I would try. I found a recipe that called for arrowroot, and I used cornstarch instead, and it came out just fine. So I'm sorry that I can't give you more insight into your question, which is very good. Okay, it's Jimmy L. Hi, Jimmy. How are you today? Jimmy has a question about sharpening a Japanese Yanagibe knife. So we looked at this question beforehand, and we have some very good references and resources. And we did email Chef Eric beforehand because that sounds like something he would be very familiar with. So um, we will get back to you, but I think the references should already be up for you to enjoy. Thanks, Jimmy. Appreciate it. This is from Daleen. And what resources do you recommend for recipes that align with what is coming out of the garden? Well, cooking seasonally is always a very good thing to do, but I'm thinking summer salads. I'm thinking pasta dishes covered with those vegetables. We talked about making zucchini muffins and zucchini bread and zucchini noodles and other things like that. So I think that the one thing about having an abundance of summer vegetables is that you don't want to create boredom with everyone. Oh no, not another zucchini dish, or oh, well, we're going to eating kale again. So that you can steam or blanch some of those vegetables and then freeze them, and that should work, well for you. So there are things like that. Um, for some reason, and I don't know the answer why, but kale grows very easily for me. So I have kale until the end of October, and I never tire of kale, and I use it all of the time and eat it practically every day. So there's that. Um, I'm thinking of the big bounty of salad, and go back to batch cooking. This would be a wonderful time to use the roasted tofu recipe and make either some tofu croutons or some little flanks of tofu to add to that salad. So there are endless possibilities. And I don't know about you, but when the summer is finally over and I can't go out to my front yard, yes, my garden is in the front of my house and it looks like a big flower bed. And a lot of people in my neighborhood seem to be doing that now. But anyway, you don't want to tire of anything, and just enjoy the bounty, share it with friends. And if you are a person who wants the whole world to be plant based, make a beautiful dish with the zucchini from your garden and take it to your friend or neighbor. And don't use the word vegan or plant based, and they will tell you how delicious it was. And case in point is last week at this outing where I made vegan cheeses. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't use the word vegan. I used the word cashew. I said, oh, yeah, it's some cheese made with cashews. And everybody was like, oh, I've never had cashew cheese before. Whereas sometimes using the word vegan is really hard for people to hear. So that is a great question. um, oh, this book behind me by Joanne Lee Molinaro is a fabulous book. She started out as a blogger, and her book is excellent. And I actually enjoy cooking things from it. I omit the oil, and when she calls for sesame oil, I just roast or toast some sesame seeds, and then I grind them quickly and then add them to the dish, and it kind of gives the same flavor and umami that the sesame oil would give, but without those added calories and grams of fat. Okay, Dan just said, wait, stop the presses. Vaseline sticks covered in, not Vaseline, Vicks, Vicks Vapor Rub. I don't know when the last time was that I used Vicks Vapor Rub, and I buy the generic, from the local grocery store or pharmacy, and you just take the sticks and slather it on each side and stick it in, and no one comes near it. And then I'll go out a week later and put a little bit more on. Or you can put little bowls of vinegar in the garden, and no one seems to like vinegar either. So, and no one has a cold either, Dan. Sorry, that's my bad joke. But it really does work. You'll have to try it and let me know how it works for you. Okay, let's see. Oh, this is a great question from Nancy. What are some simple meaty texture ideas for vegetarians? So I find that let's say that you've made a chili, a vegan chili. So you can either add finely ground cooked tofu. So you make those roasted tofu pieces and put it in the food processor for a couple of whirls, and it adds a nice meaty texture to it. Sometimes I'll add almond flour because that adds a lot of nice texture to it. Um, Nutritional yeast, I find, always adds not only flavor but really good texture. So those are a couple of things that I like to use. You can also, if you're having a chili, for example, take out a cup of the chili itself and puree that and then throw it back into the chili, and it kind of changes the texture a little bit. Um, Sometimes people like to add some ground walnuts. I mean, I think that a lot of this is experimentation and things that fit into your flavor palette and also what you like to cook. So that's what I would do, Victoria. And that was a great question. Thank you so much. Okay, this is from these potatoes are making me so hungry because I haven't had lunch yet and they smell so delicious. I've heard vegan chefs say that certain foods shouldn't be combined within the same meal, but they never explain why. If true, where can I learn more about which combinations to avoid? This isn't something that I practice. I would say that there are maybe looking into Ayurvedic cuisine that is sort of more balanced to what the body needs would be a helpful thing to do. Um, there's a lot of stuff out there. So I think once you find a resource that you like, but I think looking into Ayurveda would probably be very helpful. And that was a very good question. Thank you, Lily. Okay. Let's see. I'm going through to see if there's anything I have forgotten so far or not. Okay, well, that's a good sign. This is from Rochelle G. Hi, Rochelle. How are you? Um, she's new to cooking, and how can she easily make grains taste better? Which grains do you recommend for taste and nutrition? So, if you grew up like I did, anytime we ate grains, there was lots of salt and there was lots of butter. So, I think unwinding that behavior was probably one of the hardest things for me to do. So, I would first make certain that you have a well stocked spice cabinet with lots of dry herbs and spices. And I go through things pretty quickly, but before I was plant-based, I would like put the date of things on the bottom. But I think I've had this for 2 months because I've been making a lot of curried cauliflower soup and use that. But you want to avoid the oil and you want to avoid the salt. So you can cook your rice in a stock, which is very flavorful. And if you have made the simple cabbage soup recipe, you know that making that stock is the stock is the real star of that soup. I've made that soup with like a store-bought stock and it does not taste the same at all. So start saving your vegetable scraps to make a delicious and nutrient dense vegetable stock for you. Fresh herbs, for example. Um, when I was in Italy last fall, um, at the end of a dish, the chef would add finely minced mint to a dish because basil was out of season and they only eat seasonally. So if you have fresh herbs that you're growing, whether it be rosemary or mint or basil or whatever, you can use those. In terms of the texture, You can take nutritional yeast and mix it with a little bit of water to make a paste, and then throw that into your rice, and it kind of gives it a creamier texture to it. Or that you could make the white bechamel sauce that we have in our curriculum, which seems to be a favorite with everyone. It has a cashew nut base. If you can't do cashews, you could use cannellini beans instead of the nuts if you wanted to monitor a lower fat and not have as many calories. So that bechamel sauce, I personally love cooking with mustard. It's my favorite condiment, so I will add I will add mustard. And I just wanted to say one of the biggest crazes going on right now on the internet is this salad dressing that's made with equal amounts of tahini and pickle juice. So if you have a jar of pickles in your refrigerator and maybe there's one pickle left, but there's maybe 6 ounces of the pickle juice, you can make that into a luscious creamy sauce to put on your grains. And I'm also thinking of a watered down hummus, which also gives the same creaminess that you might be looking for. Um, that's another great question because everybody's always looking to replace, sometimes more than flavor, a texture. So I think that that was a very good question for you to ask. It's always good to hear from you too, Rochelle. And last but not least, this is from Nice Hunt. And this is your third question. And I'm so happy that you're still here. So his one more question is, what will boiling tempeh in vegetable stock do? So the real deal is that you don't want to boil it, but you want to steam it so that it sort of adds more flavor to the tempeh itself. It may open um, the spores a little bit. Uh, I don't boil it. And the other thing that I do with it is that I take a square of tempeh and I score the back of it with a big X. And then first I let it sit, and then I let it sit in a stock, and then I will steam it as with the prescribed time, and find that that works well for me. And I will also say that I never ate. I was a vegan for about 5 years before I even had tempeh or tofu, because they were two foods that just seemed so unappealing to me. So because of the pre-soaking and the stock method, that adds a lot more flavor to the tempeh. And I will add some fresh garlic, or I will add some granulated garlic. And the same goes for the tofu recipe, because you can monitor the texture of that dish by your oven temperature and the length of cooking it, so it works that well. So these have been great questions. Um, I think I had one question. I have one thing I wanted to say about your assignments. And maybe some of you know that at a time in my life, I was also an elementary school teacher. I taught fifth grade, and I would always tell my students to do the hardest problems first. And sometimes when your name comes into me, I click on your name and I always want to see where you are in the program, how many more assignments you have to do. And it looks like a lot of people do the fun assignments first, but it really is a good idea. For example, if you um, have the raw assignment, which is, a multi-step assignment, make sure that you get that done. Don't pass it, because then what happens at the end is that there's a bell that's ticking for you to finish the program, and you've got the most difficult assignments to do. And then that creates a lot of stress. And then you might not meet your deadline, and you always want to meet that deadline. So that's all for today. I want to thank Patrick, who was my producer today. And I hope that everybody has a great June. And thanks for everyone for tuning in. And I hope that everyone has a great day. I'm signing off from the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection. Have a great day.